Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and welcome back to Elden Ring, Things You Didn't Know. Today we have some more follow-ups from previous episodes and some really cool lore theories that I want to discuss with you. I want to say a quick thank you for the well wishes since I was sick last week and I'm now feeling a lot better. But with that said, let's just jump into today's episode. We open today's episode here in the boss room of Malekith the Black Blade, where you fight in this circle. It's an interesting place, Farum Azula, because there's quite a lot of statues and imagery that if you don't really stop and look at it, you just kind of miss. For example, what's above this statue here appears to be potentially the original formation of the Elden Rings. Maybe this was the Order with, say, Placidusax and his era of being the Elden Lord. In any case, what I'm interested in is actually just below that. And this character right here. You see, I've never stopped and actually looked at this statue. I've seen pictures of it before, but I've never really stopped to think about it. Why is there a little girl or a young woman sat praying and surrounded by 3 wolves? And I can't really tell. What do you think? Are they attacking her or are they laughing? Like, to me, they look like they're chuckling. Potentially, they're actually friends. Obviously, the first thing that my mind went to do is think about the Lone Wolf Ashes. You are given these by Ranni herself, as well as the bell at the beginning of the game. I wondered whether the description of this would tell us anything, but all it says is that these wolves, the spirit of these wolves anyway, they were chased from their pack, and then general information about them and how they meet us, the Tarnished, becoming our hunting companions. Still, the triple wolf imagery is important, and this lady, I think, is really important. She's here for a reason. Now, when you think of Malekith and the Black Blade and the current holder of Destined Death, the holder of Destined Death prior to that was, of course, the Gloam Queen. We have lots of discussion in this series and in general about who the Gloam Queen is, but this is maybe our only true imagery of this character. What if this is indeed a statue of the Gloam Queen in a humanistic form? Maybe these wolves were just her companions, maybe they have something to do with the spirits. But I find this statue very interesting with the context and the questions that I've asked, so I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. What do you think? On that note, I'd like to do a quick highlight of a Twitter account, as I do in this series occasionally. Jane Lisa 911 is an incredible artist who's made some really cool things in collaboration with the other Souls YouTuber, Smotown, who makes great videos, by the way, if you are interested in that. Now, Jane Lisa made this incredible mock-up for exactly what we were just talking about, the Gloam Queen. What would she look like? The number one theory and best thing that we have right now is that it's potentially Melina, due to the ending where she has those spooky eyes and she talks about Destined Death and how she's going to hunt us and how Destined Death is coming for us. Again, the only holder of Destined Death prior to Malekith that we know of was the Gloam Queen. So by combining, say, the guise of Melina in the original game, like when you summon her, and some pieces from the Godskins, which the Gloam Queen was in charge of, this was her faction, you know, I think those robes and that outfit really matches well. And I love this little picture where the hair is kind of frizzled and frazzled and all over the place, much as it is with Melina in that final scene when you do the frenzy ending. I found this such good concept art and such a good idea because it flows so well into one another. It's like the pieces were made for one another. Now, of course, this is very cool, but again, I want to recommend this Twitter to you guys in general. For example, when the Shadow of the Erdtree dropped, the very same day, like hours later, this account had made this really cool mock-up in Unreal Engine of that scene with potentially Miquella and whatever's happening with the Erdtree, whether that's the Divine Erdtree or the Haligtree and the Erdtree. Just a cool secondary shot. So if you're looking for really cool concept art and imagery to do with Elden Ring based on what's available in the game right now, I really recommend this account. Moving on though, we return here to the Erdtree Sanctuary, where a very important scene happened on stream with Lil Aggie. During a challenge run that we talked about in a couple episodes ago, this speedrunner was facing the Godskin duo, but here in the Erdtree Sanctuary. This was due to a randomizer. They were doing a sort of challenge run against each other for speedrun purposes, and obviously very entertaining content. Something strange happened though during that encounter, where when putting one of the duos to sleep, as you might normally do, the other roared in an animation I'd never seen before and woke the other up. Further, this was discussed of whether this was possible in the real game, because this was a randomized run. Another account on Twitter revealed that, yeah, this happened to them in the current version of Elden Ring with no modding, except it happened in the village where that singular Godskin is, and it woke up one of the villagers that he put to sleep. I wanted to follow up on this because I found it really interesting and asked you guys, like, what do you think's happening here? Do you think this is possible in the game? Are they going to patch this in and make it even harder to put them to sleep? And we got a lot of feedback and response to it, so I want to highlight that. Essentially, what people think is happening here is that it is indeed in the base game. The Godskins, in fact, have always had the ability to wake up sleeping allies. But it seems the devs think that's a bit unfair or too strong, so they never actually implemented it or let it fly. And current main speculation is actually due to the banished knights that are around the area in the Godskin duo fight. For whatever reason, by having other AI around, they can't wake up another. But when you're in the village, there aren't that close proximity enemy AI, which allows the roar to happen and can happen in the live game, specifically in that village. It was Mighty Seahorse that explained that, with Brandon Wright explaining the banished knight aspect. Subter also followed up on this, suggesting that it's just a nearby enemy that ultimately blocks the wake up ability. But it's there in the files, and it's something they could just implement into the Godskin duo whenever they want. So it could be a matter of time before this actually starts happening in live, when they want to make things a bit spicier for current playthroughs. Anyway, looking forward to the Elden Ring DLC, where we have Godskin Trios, as many of you said, or even the Godskin Quartet. Gonna make for a great final DLC boss fight. Next up though, we have a fantastic weapon-based theory from Dark Moon Miracle, which I absolutely love. So it's to do with these two swords. First, the Carian Knight Sword, and second, Miquella's Knight Sword. Now, these are very similar swords, and it's not an accident. The lore of this sword is simple. It's a weapon of knights sworn to Carian royalty, but there are very few of these Carian knights in existence. There's really cool lore here in how that this actually lets them wield it as if it's a catalyst, so they can use their sorcery battle skills. Less than 20 of these knights existed, but they were so strong that they held off the champions of gold in battle, holding the Carian faction strong, ultimately leading to that marriage to prevent the ongoing battle. Now, Miquella's Knight Sword here, this is actually of the same design. When you stop and look at them, you can just see it. They are the same shape, the same length, very familiar weapons, but with their own kind of design and theme to them. It was forged by the servants of Miquella, and it was designed after, yes, the Carian Knight Sword. But instead of that glintstone blue kind of core, they used amber from the Erdtree. This idea of taking the sap of a tree isn't a new one. With the Blessed Dew talisman that we've talked about before, there was a very brief period where they would take the sap of the Erdtree, and it seemed to have healing properties, much like this talisman does. So in the same way, he's created a new tree as Miquella, and there is actually sap within that was being used. Amber. What's interesting about this piece though is that it was never actually offered to any knight. It was forged for a specific purpose, and yet it was a quote ill-starred sword with no master. So the question is, who was this made for? Whose sword is this? I stand here for a specific purpose, and that is because it's the boss fight zone of Loretta. Loretta, as we all know, was once a Carian knight. We know that she went on this journey to find a haven for the Albinaurics, and so ended up serving the Erdtree faction to provide a home for them. It's the theory then of Dark Moon Miracle that this sword was actually made for Loretta, but was never given to her for some reason. When we fight her, she's using that magical halberd. Maybe just swords aren't her thing, but logically, they would be. She was one of the very few very powerful Carian knights. A powerful amber version of that concept then must have been a very powerful thing indeed, and would have been very powerful in her hands. But the question is, why would she reject it, or why was she never given it? I like this idea though, because the silver mirror shield, which is held by Loretta in the fight, is made from the same concept. A shield of silver festooned with amber and was carried by Loretta, imitating that of a drop of sacred dew. So these themes are identical. Why would she never have taken the sword? If it wasn't made for Loretta, then who? Let me know what you think. Finally, for our last thing of today's episode, I stand here in the sandy waste where we fight Radahn for a follow-up on a question I asked a few episodes ago. Why does Radahn have those stumpy, cut-off, strange legs? I said in the episode, maybe it's a sort of sacrifice he made to make it so he doesn't really weigh anything at all. Maybe by cutting off his feet, he was able to enhance his limbs and legs, and then permanently have that gravity effect so he's not weighing down his precious horse. But there were a couple of suggestions in the comments that I wanted to talk about because, well, they make a lot of sense. It's not that the feet were taken off intentionally. In fact, we see his feet in the original story cinematic. When he's facing Malenia, he has feet. There's a brief moment where he steps forward and you see the feet, but in the boss fight, they're gone. Now, we don't know how long has actually passed since that really important event, you know, the shattering and all the events that followed, but we know it's been a long time. Could have been hundreds of years. NPC Maga suggests that it could be that while dragging himself around like a zombie for all that time, wandering aimlessly in the way that he did, maybe they were just like rubbed off, you know, eroded over hundreds of years. It's possible, but many people in the comments suggested that it could be because of rot. In this area after that fight, you know, after the cinematic where he's fighting Malenia, that rot occurs. Caitlyn it's turned into what it's turned into, and he's wandering around it, dipping his toes in rotten sand. Maybe that's why they're just stumps as we see them today. But it is cool that you can actually just barely spot that he does have feet and they weren't taken off for any gravity purposes. Makes you wonder though, why are they stumps today? What do you guys think? But there you have it, another episode down. I hope you guys found that interesting or useful. And if you have any theories to do with what we talked about, then please let me know. I love those types of back and forths. As always, if you know anything not currently in the series, any interesting details to do with the DLC or just current game or whatever, then let me know in the comments. I might just find use in it. We might talk about it in the episode. And of course, I'll give you a shout out. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.